Harold Preston was known around his quiet New York lakeside community as the man with the gentle smile. At 70, he walked with a slight hunch, always in a cardigan no matter the season, and his silvery hair was always neatly combed. After retiring from a successful real estate career, he spent most of his days gardening, reading history books, and volunteering at the community center. He had a charm about him that made people feel comfortable. But behind that soft demeanor was a man still grieving the love of his life. Harold had been married to Margaret Preston for 42 years. She was his high school sweetheart, and they built everything together: careers, a home, a family. When cancer claimed Margaret 12 years ago, Harold was never the same. He kept her photos in every room and her favorite scarf draped over the back of the rocking chair she used to sit in. Every evening, he'd poured 2 glasses of wine, drinking one and leaving the other untouched, for her, he said. Lisa, now 45, and Daniel, 43, had always adored their father. They admired his work ethic and how he cared for their mother. But after her death, they became his protectors. Lisa, a nurse, often dropped by to check on his medications and health. Daniel, living 2 hours away, called every night. They were both wary of strangers entering their father's life, especially after a few awkward run-ins with women from his grief support group who seemed more interested in Harold's wealth than his well-being. It was a Tuesday afternoon art class at the community center where Harold met Lila Monroe. She was 30, radiant and confident, with long auburn hair and a voice that danced between sultry and sweet. Harold had never painted a day in his life, but he liked the peaceful atmosphere. Lila said she was trying to capture the essence of emotion in still life. She complimented his choice of colors. He complimented her laugh. And just like that, the seed was planted. Lila told Harold she was originally from Ohio, raised by a single mother, and that she had come to New York to start fresh. She said she had no siblings, her parents were gone, and that art had saved her from a difficult past. But none of it could be verified. She had no photos, no stories that lined up, and she seemed to always dodge questions about her past. Still, Harold was enchanted. He believed people deserved second chances. Within 2 months, they were spending every day together. Lila brought him fresh baked scones and herbal tea. She read to him on the porch. She laughed at his jokes. And when she said, "I don't care about your age. You're the kindest man I've ever met," Harold felt like a young man again. His friends were surprised. His children were alarmed. But Harold didn't see a 40-year age difference, he saw possibility. Lisa and Daniel were not subtle. Lisa flat out asked Lila about her intentions. Daniel called his father and asked him if he was being manipulated. Harold became defensive, accusing them of being controlling and unsupportive. "I'm not dead yet," he told them. "I can still make my own decisions." That conversation created the first cracks in a once tightly bonded family. Harold hadn't proposed in over 40 years. The last time, it had been with Margaret, on a quiet hill behind their college campus. Under an oak tree they carved their initials into. Now, decades later, he was doing it again, but this time, the setting was carefully orchestrated. Harold planned a cozy dinner at his favorite lakeside restaurant, the kind with linen napkins and soft jazz in the background. The table overlooked the water, where the sun dipped low, casting golden light on the rippling surface. Lila wore a lavender dress and smiled warmly across the table. "You look nervous," she teased, sipping wine. Harold chuckled, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Maybe a little." He pulled out a small velvet box, not new, but sentimental. It was the same ring he had given Margaret, now reset with a smaller diamond and polished band. "This ring meant the world to me once," he said softly. "And now, I want it to mean something again." Lila's eyes widened, her hand covering her mouth. "Lila Monroe," Harold said, voice trembling, "these past months have brought life back into this old heart. I didn't think I'd feel joy again, but then you came along. I want to spend what time I have left making you smile. Will you marry me?" There was a long pause. Then Lila gave a theatrical gasp and nodded tearfully. "Yes, Harold, of course I will." Other diners clapped. The waitress brought over complimentary champagne. Lila leaned across the table and kissed him deeply. But as Harold beamed with joy, Lila's eyes flickered with something else, something colder, calculated. That night, Harold called Lisa and Daniel. Only Daniel answered. "That's great, Dad," he said flatly. "If you're happy, I'm happy." But Daniel's voice held hesitation. And the next day, Lisa called back with a single sentence. "Please tell me you didn't give her mom's ring." The wedding took place at City Hall. It was quiet, quick, and devoid of any family or friends. Harold wore a navy suit he'd kept since Margaret's funeral. Lila wore a champagne-colored dress she said she found at a thrift shop. They kissed under the fluorescent lights of the registrar's office. No photos were taken. Lisa and Daniel refused to attend. Harold didn't invite them. Lila moved in that same weekend. Her first act was to redecorate. The curtains change. Margaret's favorite teacup collection disappeared. New art, abstract and bold, appeared on the walls. Doors that were always open were now locked. Harold, who used to be up at 6 a.m. to water his roses, began sleeping in. "I'm just relaxing more," he said. The once daily phone calls from Harold to his children became weekly, then monthly. Lila told him they didn't respect his choices. "They only want your money," she whispered one night. Soon, he stopped answering their calls altogether. Lisa left voicemails. Daniel drove up unannounced but was turned away. Lila claimed Harold was resting. "He doesn't need stress at his age," she told them. Lila convinced Harold to add her to his bank accounts. She said it was for emergencies. She said love means sharing everything. Within weeks, she had a new car. She had a personal stylist. She bought expensive skincare. Harold smiled weakly when questioned by a friend, but the sparkle in his eyes was fading. Lisa, suspicious and worried, returned one day when she knew Lila would be gone. She found Harold asleep and frail. She searched the study and noticed one of the drawers that once held Margaret's jewelry was locked. When she asked about it later, Harold told her to leave it alone. "It's just paperwork," he said. Unbeknownst to his children, Harold changed his will. Lila now stood to inherit nearly everything. The house, the retirement savings, even the lake cabin he had promised Lisa's children. The lawyer noted Harold seemed distant, not quite himself, but he signed the papers anyway. Lisa and Daniel confronted Lila one stormy night. Voices were raised. Lila accused them of trying to steal from their father. Daniel shouted. Lisa cried. Harold walked in and saw his children arguing with his wife. He didn't ask questions. He simply asked them to leave and not come back. Days turned into weeks. Harold grew more tired. He stopped going outside. Lila claimed he had a cold. Then she said it was the flu. Then she stopped giving updates at all. Neighbors noticed curtains always drawn. No more garden tools left out. No more Harold. Tommy, Harold's old fishing buddy, decided to pay a visit. Lila said Harold was resting. Tommy insisted on leaving him a book they used to share. She reluctantly let him in. Tommy noticed how thin Harold looked. Pale, confused, like a man waiting to disappear. Tommy called Lisa. Lisa contacted Adult Protective Services. An officer visited, but Lila smiled sweetly and said all was fine. Harold nodded slowly in agreement. No action was taken. Lisa felt helpless. He's a prisoner, she told Daniel. Harold's prescriptions were no longer being filled. The local pharmacist mentioned it in passing to Lisa, who immediately knew something was wrong. Harold needed those pills daily. He might not even be getting his medication, she feared. Lisa made one last attempt to see her father. This time, the door remained closed. Lila refused to answer. The lights were on. Shadows moved, but no one responded. Lisa drove back crying, not knowing that night would be her last chance. 3 days later, police received an anonymous call. A man was dead. They arrived at Harold's house to find Lila sitting calmly on the couch. He passed in his sleep, Lila said gently. Last night, or maybe early this morning. He's been sick, you see. Weak, tired. I tried to wake him. But Harold's lifeless body lay upstairs, in bed. There were no signs of struggle. No visible wounds. Just silence. Has he seen a doctor recently? One officer asked. Lila nodded. We were managing his care at home. He didn't want hospitals. He just wanted peace. They looked around. No medical equipment. No pill bottles. No oxygen tank. Just silence and that strange, cloying scent in the air. We'll need to notify the coroner, the officer said. Lila nodded again, eyes welling with controlled tears. Lisa was in the middle of her nursing shift when she got the call from the local precinct. Your father's been found deceased, the officer said gently. She dropped the phone. Daniel was at work, stuck in traffic, when he got the same call. He pulled over and sat behind the wheel in stunned silence, tears welling in his eyes. Neither of them had heard from Lila. She never called, never texted, never told them their father had died. They found out from strangers. And that, more than anything, broke them. If you're gripped by this powerful story, take a moment to support our channel. Like this video, share it with others, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life crime stories told like never before. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. The autopsy listed the cause of death as inconclusive, no signs of heart failure, stroke, or overdose. But toxicology revealed small, consistent traces of a sedative not prescribed to Harold. Mixed with his existing medications, the dosage could have led to organ failure over time. It was subtle. It was deliberate. Lila claimed Harold had been ill for weeks and died peacefully in his sleep. She signed paperwork with shaking hands, cried softly for the neighbors, and wore black to the small memorial she arranged closed casket, no family invited. Lisa and Daniel held their own service at a local chapel. Just 6 people attended. Lisa clutched her father's photo while Daniel vowed, "She's not going to get away with this." They both knew something was terribly wrong and they weren't letting go. While sorting through paperwork, Lisa discovered that a $750,000 life insurance policy had been activated just 8 weeks before Harold's death. The beneficiary? Lila Monroe Preston. Daniel hired a private investigator. Within days, they uncovered that Lila had changed her name 5 times in the past decade. Fraud, theft, and elder abuse charges in 3 other states all sealed or dropped due to lack of evidence. The investigator found 2 elderly men, both deceased, who had been romantically linked to women matching Lila's appearance and aliases. Both had left their estates to her. Both had died under natural, but suspicious circumstances. Lisa and Daniel visited the lawyer who had helped Harold change his will. He admitted Harold appeared withdrawn and tired during the meeting but claimed he had no legal reason to object. Still, he agreed to speak to authorities after hearing what had unfolded. With mounting circumstantial evidence, the police reopened the case. Lila was brought in for questioning. She played the grieving widow flawlessly. "They just want to blame someone," she said. "They never accepted me." In the attic, behind old holiday decorations, Lisa discovered a journal. Pages scribbled in Harold's shaky handwriting. "Not feeling well. Dizzy often. Lila gives me tea every night. Strange dreams. Don't remember much." Toxicology retesting on samples from the teacups revealed traces of zolpidem, a potent sedative. It had been used nightly. The dose was enough to cloud memory and dull bodily function over time. Police confronted Lila with the new toxicology findings and the journal. Her demeanor changed instantly. No more soft smiles. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. But she knew the tide had turned. A judge approved a search of the house. In a locked closet, police found syringes, sedatives, burner phones, and multiple IDs. All pointing to one conclusion: Harold wasn't her first victim. Lila was arrested on charges of second-degree murder, fraud, and elder abuse. She didn't cry this time. She didn't resist. She only asked for a lawyer and stared coldly as they led her out. The story made national headlines. "Black Widow Bride," the papers called her. News vans parked outside the Preston home. Strangers left flowers for Harold. Others left handwritten letters reading, "Justice for Harold." In court, Lila's past was laid bare. Former acquaintances, victims' relatives, and investigators testified. Lisa read aloud from Harold's journal. "She made him feel loved while she was slowly killing him," she cried. Lila's lawyer claimed Harold was already dying, that he consented to the medication, and that his children were simply bitter over the will. But the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was too overwhelming. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all charges. Lila showed no emotion as the judge read the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lisa and Daniel petitioned to have the will voided due to fraud. After a lengthy legal process, Harold's estate was returned to his rightful heirs. The lake cabin went to Lisa's kids, as Harold had always intended. Neighbors gathered for a lakeside memorial in Harold's honor. They shared stories of his kindness, his garden, his laughter. A bench was placed by the water with a plaque, in loving memory of Harold Preston. A gentle soul. Grief didn't vanish, but it softened. Lisa began painting something she picked up from Harold's old class. Daniel started visiting more often. They were learning to live with the loss, and the lesson he left behind. Authorities in Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania reopened cold cases tied to Lila's aliases. 2 bodies were exhumed. Signs of poisoning. Lila may face future charges. Her reign of manipulation was far from over. Lila began writing letters from prison. Some to Lisa and Daniel. Some to reporters. In them, she denied everything. They were all old men. "I just wanted to be loved," she wrote. But no one believed her anymore. True crime podcasts picked up the story. Elderly groups hosted seminars about financial and emotional exploitation. If it could happen to Harold, one speaker said, it could happen to anyone. Lisa was approached by a publisher. At first, she declined. But eventually, she agreed. Not for profit, but to tell the truth. The book was titled, The Bride Wore Deceit. Daniel moved into their father's house to renovate it. He left Margaret's teacups out again. Replanted the roses. Repainted the porch. "This house has history," he said. "And now it has healing." Tucked in an old envelope, Lisa found a letter addressed to her and Daniel. Written weeks before his death. "If something happens to me, know I love you both. I'm sorry I couldn't see sooner." Harold wanted companionship. Lila gave him attention, but it came with a price. His story became a reminder of how vulnerability can be weaponized, and how important it is to speak up. The community center now runs a background check program for volunteers. They renamed the garden after Harold. Art classes resumed, this time with Lisa as an instructor. On the anniversary of Harold's death, Lisa, Daniel, and their families gathered at the lake cabin. They lit candles. They laughed. They remembered. And for the first time, it didn't hurt quite as much. Harold Preston was a man who loved deeply, even after loss. But his trust was his undoing. His story ended in betrayal, but his legacy lives on. Not in the woman who took his life, but in the family who fought for justice. If this tragic story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more true crime documentaries, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Do you think justice was served? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts with us.